So today I have with me someone who's the known name of hosting in the Indian sports industry or in the Indian sports content space, which also makes me slightly nervous because what I'm doing is right up his alley. I have with me the de facto bearded face of the IPL. He doesn't have a beard now, but you know who I'm talking about. I'd like to welcome Gaurav Kapur to this episode of Gupshup with Gill. Welcome, Gaurav. Also, I just realized this is one of the episodes which I can sort of market as GK interviewing GK. How does it feel to be on the other side?
It feels weird, but it's fine. I'm okay being on any side. I'm okay being on every side. And the only advice I'd give you is don't stress about anything. That's the advice I give to most people. डरने का नहीं बेटा, करने का.
Good to know. So, Gaurav, obviously, over the last decade, everyone has known you through various things, be it the extra innings, breakfast with champions, Quick Live, 22 yarns, etc. But a lot of people don't know that before the last decade, for you were in this field of of speaking in public, being a public
There's
voice.
a few decades before that past decade as well.
Exactly. So it's still not the majority of your career yet. You were in this field 13 years, I think, before that. You started
yes,
off.
I was.
You started off as a radio jockey, if I'm not wrong, at the age of 17,
yes.
right?
Yeah, so, I did. I started off as a radio jockey in Delhi, and I was 16 at the time, and I was apparently the youngest radio jockey in the country. That's what it was profiled at that point in time. Not that it was any record, but I just like to say it. And now we live in a country where what you say just becomes the truth, right? So I'm just going to say now that I had the national record for being the youngest radio jockey in the country. If anyone wants to refute it, they can refute it, right? But right now I'm just going to go with that, though it was no national record. But that's how I started. And after that, I had a stint with Channel V, which is really strange because there is an entire different kind of universe of audience that still knows me as Channel V, right? They don't know sport. They don't follow sport. For them, I'm still, the VJ Gaurav. Then there's another bunch of people which is a very small bunch of people. Normally, it's my extended family who knows me as a failed actor from the movies that I did. So my only thing is that I've done a few different things. If any of them, even one of them has touched you in some way, then as a storyteller, I take that as a win. So I'm just happy with that. बस क्या बोला था सलमान भाई ने क्या नहीं अजय भाई ने बोला था ना कि दुआ में याद रखना है ना दुआ में याद रखना वाला तो once upon a time in Mumbai, I am also in Mumbai only, so दुआ में याद रखे कोई किसी भी वजह से I'm happy with that.
Now you mentioned that a few people also remember you as a failed actor, and I think you, from what I have seen, is that you never fail to mention that. You always sort of remember that you were an actor once. Is it something to do with that it was something that you always wanted to be, or is it just that thing कि मतलब लोगों को होता ना कि you should always remember what didn't work out for you, so you have your own learnings from that process? What it is about? Was it?
So I never say I'm an actor. I always say I'm a failed actor. I think it's important to remember your successes, but even more important to remember your failures, and to analyze it and to think. I mean, and luckily I was able to take corrective action very quickly. I realized that I'm not good at, learning lines. I'm not good at repeated takes. There's the performer in me thrived when it was improv, when it was live. So I said, well, that's where I should be as a performer, right? I should not be doing this. There are far better people who do it far better than me. So what's the point of me kind of being, and it was a business decision as well, right? If it was about what would be more lucrative in the long term, it was about where the film industry was 10 years ago. So there was a lot of factors but again, for me, I think it's very important to remember the things that don't work, because that keeps you humble, it keeps you grounded, it keeps you real. So, but yes, did I really want to be an actor? Of course I did. Did I want to be a cricket presenter? Of course I did. Did I want to be on stage? Of course I did. Did I want to be on radio? Of course I did. Did I want to be on Channel V? Of course I did. So everything I've done, I really wanted to do it, right? It was not, sometimes I portray it as a happy accident going from one thing to the other, but I kind of willed it to happen, almost like you want it to happen. You're ready for it when it comes, and some things work in your favor and some don't. And there's various other variables that are at play as well. So I also wanted to be an actor, and I tried it, and it didn't work. And you're like, okay, dust yourself off and move on. Would I ever go back to it later? I don't know. If I develop some fiction piece which I feel would work if I did it. Today, the world is very different from what it was 10 years ago. I may do it, right? I may do an interesting part. I may do something which is cast against, my type. So I may do something. Will I do it with the same gusto of 12 months a year, 365 days, morning to night? No, I won't, because now my life has taken, it's in a different direction. So I may still dabble in it, but that's not, that'll never be my full-time job like it was 10 years ago.
So, like you said about cricket presenting, I want to know, how did extra innings happen? How did that break come about? Because once you made it to extra innings, then it was like, if I can tell you. So I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I can surely tell you this, that people really really want that old extra innings back. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen. But what I want to ask you is that, how did that break come along? How did it actually happen?
So I was doing shows for ESPN Star Sports before that. They were the same channel. There was a joint venture between them a dozen years ago. And I was doing shows for them. I was doing a show called Cricket Crazy. I was doing Nike Football Locker Room. I was doing a few shows for them. And then the first year of IPL happened. I was under contract with ESPN and Star. When the second IPL came along, they decided to make this set and do this show, because in the first year they did the show from remote locations. They even set up a studio in stadiums. So it was like a caravan. It just kept moving. In the second year, they decided, we're going to make a set, and then we're going to have, smaller setup, roving setup from ground. So that's when Extra Innings, in its current kind of form, or in its form that it was known as later, came to be. And there was a gentleman called Jasdeep Pannu, who was in Sony, who called me, and he had spent some time before at ESPN Star. He had left before I came, and he called me and said, would you be keen on exploring this? And I said, well, I love this tournament. I have watched every game of the first edition, and I would love to. And we went and we had a meeting. I still remember the first meeting that we had, and they said that, what would be your creative approach to this? So I said, according to me, sport, and this was a dozen years back, I said, according to me, sport kind of right now, sport broadcasting and storytelling is really choked with seriousness that it doesn't need to be. The IPL is a carnival. It's family fun. It's like that 8 p.m. movie every evening on TV. I think it needs to be a little lighter and more fun. And I would choose to have, there is no reason why you can't have a serious conversation in a lighter vein. There is a difference between irreverence and disrespect. And I will always border on irreverence, but never disrespect. So that's the creative tack that I would like to take. And they were amazing, because they gave it was the entire team over there. There was Aloka, there was Jasdeep, there was, Sneha Rajani, there was NP Singh, of course, the CEO of Sony. And they created this beautiful ecosystem. They had this vision. Like, look at the size and scale of that show, right? Never seen before, will probably never be seen again, right? They did this and they just let us play, right? They were open to stuff. They were open to experimenting. They were open to dropping it if the experiments went wrong. So that was the beauty of working with Sony for that decade, was they created this beautiful playground and just let us kids go out and have fun. And I think that kind of came through from the screen, and that's what resonated with people. And probably that's why they still remember it kind of 5 years after it's gone. In fact, during the IPL, I get so many texts from people saying, why are you not on extra innings? I'm like, there is no extra innings anymore. What are you calling extra innings? So it became like Bisleri. It became like Maggie, right? It became the default term for a cricket pre-game and post-game show. And I think there lies its greatness. And I think there lies the greatness of the people who had that vision. I can't take credit for it. I was only last mile connectivity. They were the ones who laid the tracks and, built everything else.
Now, obviously when IPL switched from Sony to Star, there was a change. It's no more extra innings, it's Cricket Live. But we still get to see you on CricBuzz. Now, I want to ask you this and put you in a little bit of spot. What do you prefer or enjoy more? Did you enjoy doing extra innings more with, say, Mr. Sidhu and Mr. Gavaskar? Because I can never forget that Dhundo Dhundo Re Sajna moment. I like that's one of my top moments from extra innings. Or do you enjoy working with someone like Harsha Bhogle and Joy Bhattacharya sir more? I'm going to put you in a spot here.
No, that's fine. I mean, they literally, it's like an apple and an orange. I can't compare it because it's literally like, that was a masala film, right? This is slightly more script heavy, right? If you notice, there were a lot of trappings in that, a lot of frills and bells and whistles. And here it's just the story. So I'll tell you how they differ structurally. I don't know if people notice this, but at the cost of sounding a bit nerdy, what happens is that when we're doing a 30-minute show on CricBuzz Live, there is no ad breaks because it's digital. So you actually have the option of weaving a narrative or a story that goes 30 minutes uninterrupted. On television, because of its format, you can't do that. You literally have to do bite-sized pieces because you have to keep going into a sponsor integration or an ad break. So I can't have a conversation. You can't weave a conversation that goes kind of beyond. So it's like a silk scarf and knitting a sweater, right? It's just two completely different things. And they both have a use at a particular time. So I love being an extra innings because of the scale, because of the grandeur. The informality perhaps is the same on CricBuzz Live and extra innings. But I loved the grandeur and the scale. It was like being in a masala movie, right? It was just, you come in dancing, you've got the drummers, you've got cheerleaders, you've got, other musicians, and then you do this little dance move. And it was amazing. I loved it. And then I think maybe I was done with that and ready for the next thing. And for me, this was a great challenge because CricBuzz was coming up with their video product, which they were really bullish about. When I spoke with them in the beginning, I discussed creative autonomy with them. I said, will I have a certain degree of creative autonomy? Because I have these few ideas and I'd love to do that. And they were amazing. This is a place with cricket nerds and geeks to the power of infinity, right? Suckers for a story. Love it. And so am I. So is Joy. So is Harsha. So this allows us to just weave these stories that go beyond bite-sized pieces stopped by an ad break.
Yeah.
So basically, we're not stopped there by Laxkosi 4s and, Vimal Pan Masala 6s. So I love the grandeur and the magic of extra innings, but I love the intimacy and the storytelling of CricBuzz Live. And they're both friends on either side. So I don't think I can pick between friends, whether it's Sheripa, Sunny Bhai, Harsha, Joy. I can't really pick between friends. It's great hanging out with all of them. I wish I actually had the option of hanging out with all of them together, and then add other people in the mix: Ajay Jadeja, Ashish Nehra, Zahir Khan, Simon Dool, Pommy, Michael Vaughan, Sean Pollock. It's a big list really of people to hang out with.
Now, people when they talk of IPL, there's always a talk about the workload that is there on the teams, the players, the support staff. Now, I want to know from you, since when you were doing extra innings, you were not only present in the studios, but you would also travel on the ground and do reporting from the ground as well. So how tough can it be for the broadcasters, such a hectic event which goes on non-stop? Because we have heard stories about how difficult it is for the players that are involved, but no one really talks about the pressure on broadcasters. So let us in on that aspect a little bit.
It's quite it's quite hard for the broadcasters. The last 3 or 4 years, I never went to the ground. I only did the studio because I don't know. I felt like there was only like 2-3 minutes happening from the ground. It just seemed a lot of work and effort to do, to plug in for like 2 or 3 minutes. So I didn't do that in the last couple of years. But it's hard and it gets hard. And something, I feel like it's much harder for the girls because there is also that, that getting ready component with the, hair and makeup and all that, I didn't have to do because what can you do to this face? You can't make it any prettier unless you're doing plastic surgery. So ab chodo na, ab thoda baal kangi karke suit pehen ke nikal liye. Theek hai, abhi kya karna hai aur? But even for Shibani and Archana, I used to always doff my hat at them because, they would start, because there's just more hair, they got to fix it, right? So they would have to go into hair and makeup, and that's great. They love it, they enjoy it, they do it, but it just takes more time. And it was very hectic, and they'd just be on the road for those 50 days. I'd still come back to studio and get to be at home, and because I live in the same city. So there's virtues of sleeping in your own bed, and eating your own food, and etc., etc. So I'd still get those breaks. But I think for the camera crews, which were always on the go, especially for the girls, and for a camera crew, a tech crew, is pretty hard, man. Like being on the road for like 60 days, one place to the other. It sounds a bit privileged and douchey to be complaining about hotel food and traveling by air and stuff, but the thing is, it does get to you a bit. I mean, you eat that food, it's heavy, man. You eat that food, after a week you just start feeling a little dizzy with all of that. So yes, it sounds like a first world problem, but it is a problem. And I think that all the forever traveling crews, I think they had it much worse. And I don't mean just the Sony crew. I also mean the broadcast crew that brings the match to you, which is a different crew from the Sony crew. And that crew is much bigger. They've got 4 crews of about 100, 125 people each. And they are even doing the rigging of the cables and the de-rigging and, moving. It's a pretty labor intensive, physically, mentally, emotionally draining job.
You make an excellent point that, even though it's hotel food and sounds douchey to complain about it, what people sometimes don't realize is that just because, you're getting paid for it, there are some comforts that money can't buy. The comfort of a home is the comfort of a home. It's not that if you're being paid so and so dollars, it's not that you will get more than 24 hours in a day. You still need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You still need to recover. So it's just something that we, just seem to think, ठीक है, पैसा मिल रहा है and ये सब privilege है तो हो जाएगा. But you make a good point. It's not that easy, and it gets extremely draining and difficult to manage that.
I've seen it once. We were flying from Fort Lauderdale in Florida to Guyana. So 2 of the T20s happened in Fort Lauderdale. The third one was happening in Guyana, in Georgetown. And the flight was in the evening. The flight got delayed. It's like a 4.5 hour flight. We landed there at like 3 in the morning. So the game has been on a Sunday in the morning. Sunday evening, this flight is supposed to be at 7, 8. It takes off at like 10:30, 11. You land at like 3 a.m. Immigration takes 2 hours. You reach the hotel by 6, 6:30 in the morning on a Monday. Tuesday is the game. The crew has put their bags, had breakfast, and gone to the ground to rig it up. Because you got to lay the cables and the wires and do the entire tech to beam up to the satellite and position the cameras, because you have just one day to do it. You have to do a tech check one day before. So these were guys who had done a game on a Saturday, on a Sunday, flown on a Sunday night, and done all of Monday rigging. I was still looking at it, I said, you guys are going to be ghosts, right? It's nuts. Like, I still went to my room at 6:30 and slept because I had no work that day, right? But the entire camera crew, sound crew, tech crew, producers, they all went to the ground and they did this. So it's hard, sometimes you don't realize what has to be done. But when you see them doing it, and they do it without a problem. They're all commandos and ninja. I respect them, right? Just standing with a camera like that and following the ball for 50 overs without a break, right? It's so funny. They all learn how to scratch with their foot, right? So suddenly you'll be noticing them, and one foot is going up on their thigh and scratching them because they can't move. So it's as I said, it's emotionally and physically quite a draining job.
It almost reminds me of the story that Harsha Bhogle narrated on 22 Yarns about the cameraman who'd never missed a stumping in his entire life. And we're talking of the times when there didn't used to be multiple cameras. He would be on the bowler's end when the bowler was about to deliver to catch the no ball, and then he would come to the batsman end to check if there's a stumping chance or not. So yes, like doing camera work is complete. It's a very, very difficult job without a doubt. Now, coming to hosting a live space and being an anchor, I'm sure that now that you've also followed the game for 20, 25 years, there are opinions that you also have of the game. But when you're supposed to be the one anchoring the show and there are a couple of other experts, I'm sure there are times when you feel, okay, that you probably don't agree with the opinion that is coming out, from any expert. So at that point of time, is there an instinct to sort of, come in and give your opinion, or do you have to hold yourself back and sort of,
No, but I
let
disagree.
the...
It's very. If you watch Crickbuzz Live, there's many times when I disagree. When I argue, not for the sake of arguing, because I have seen it from a different point of view. I feel that after being live on air for 15 years, I have earned that privilege to ask that question, saying, I see it this way. Now, a disagreement doesn't mean, disagreement can take various, shapes and forms. I can tell you, oh, I don't agree with you, but that's counterproductive, right? That doesn't mean anything. I'm just going to ask you a question saying, all right, I see a point, but I also saw this. And then we don't have any ego between us. You can either take that point or you can trash it, right? And I can be proven wrong by you, and I'm okay with it, right? So, but what do you owe to the viewer? At the end of the day, your ego can't be better or bigger than what your viewer deserves, right? The viewer comes first, always. Which is why I never have time for any broadcaster, any analyst, any presenter who thinks that their ego and their image is more important than a viewer's satisfaction, right? Viewer comes first. The viewer needs the story. I saw the story from an angle that perhaps has not been discussed. It is my responsibility to bring up that angle. And then you, as the former captain of England, or you, as the former captain of India, can give us that point of view. And of course, we're all going to listen to it because you are absolutely qualified to give that. You have more of an insight. But remember, the most learned person as well doesn't have any guarantee to be 100% right. So they are open to listen to a point and say, all right, that's cool. So I feel like I don't do that anymore because that's not true to the audience. So yes, sometimes you go, oh, but no, what is your job? Your job is to present the story from all conceivable angles to your viewer, to your audience. You got to do that job.
Excellent point. This was something that even, Gaurav Kapur mentioned, that you have to ask the question as a presenter, which the viewer wants, because you've been put in that place to make sure that whatever there is in the mind of the viewer that can't reach the expert, you have to do that for the viewer. So definitely a very good point in terms of, doing justice to the viewer. But do you think, just now you also mentioned one more thing, that you've been in that space for long enough to sort of command that respect. Do you think it is possible, or do other new upcoming anchors also have that privilege to ask, or they probably have to play a little safe and sort of...
But you got to earn it, right? I mean, it's a simple thing. It's how would you, like, ask this question to yourself, right? How would you act in front of a person you have just met as opposed to having met them 20 times? It's really a very simple human filter when you think about it, right? And at the end of the day, if you're not coming from disrespect, then people want to have a conversation. You're not there just to ask a question and go away. It's not a survey, right? It is a conversation. So it is my job to drive the conversation. It is my job to ensure that the flow of thought is smooth. If I was just asking a question, then that job can be done better by a graphic plate, no?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Another thing, as somebody who loves sport, and I just don't mean cricket, but I follow a little bit of other sports as well. And I think I can say this for a lot of people who love sports. We look up to sports and, all the related content which is to it, to sort of, drive ourselves and have an ambition, or have an inspiration or an aspiration to becoming better. And we do also tend to learn something from the journeys and the stories of other sports persons. But you, on the other hand, have interacted with them so much that, you probably know a few people inside out. I want to know that, doing what you've been doing what you've done in the last 10 years, has that made you better as a person in a few aspects? Like, this is some that, have you changed something about yourself which has purely come about from the point of, whether be it spending the time with the cricket experts, or doing breakfast with champions, where you've discussed various aspects of their life with a lot of successful sports persons, or doing 22 yarns. So I want to know about how, this process of interviewing so many people changes you from within.
So I've never thought of, so here's the difference. Like, I've never interviewed anyone in my life. right? I only have conversations with people, and I want the viewer to be a third person in that conversation, right? So that's the lens that I've always viewed differently. Because an interview, I feel, is better done for a journalist or a newspaper, right? I am not. I'm not interviewing somebody because that's far too serious, and I don't think I'm qualified to do that job. I'm qualified to have a conversation with a person because my only interest lies in human behavior and lies in stories, right? So I'm genuinely curious about stories. So I'm genuinely curious about having conversations. So that works for me there. As far as learning from people, that is a constant pursuit that I have, but I don't leave that to just successful people or people who have made it in life. I feel that I can learn from, my 5-year-old nephew, right? I can learn from, a 20-year-old who's just starting their career. I can learn from people who are in my team at Oaktree. I can learn from, the guard sitting in my lobby. One of the best lessons I ever learned in life, and I'll never forget that, is when I was 17 years old, and I had come to Mumbai. I was living in Delhi that time, and I'd come to Mumbai, and it was 4 in the morning or something, and we were going to catch our train or something like that was happening. And I was sitting in the taxi, and I looked out. I was passing Dadar, I remember, and there was a kid I saw. They have those interstate buses standing over there. There's an interstate bus standing there at 4 in the morning. There's this kid, couldn't be more than 13, 14, standing on a step ladder. He was cleaning that window, right? It was his job. He was probably the helper on the bus. It was his job to clean that bus. He was cleaning that window with a level of dedication that I've not seen in CEOs, right? He was going way above and beyond what he had to do. We were at that red light for a good minute. And in Mumbai at 4 in the morning, also people adhere to red lights, which is great. And I was looking at him for a good minute and a half. That boy was going at that window like his life depended on it. For me, that moment was such a watershed moment because that was the moment that I decided that I wanted to live and work in Mumbai, right? It's the city of my birth, and I wanted to come back to it and work. It was Bombay at the time. And I wanted to work here because that kid over there was the work ethic. That kid over there is the work ethic that I aspire to even now, right? So I know that's not the glamorous answer you want, which involves Rohit Sharma or Sachin Tendulkar or Virat Kohli, but that kid's work ethic, what are you doing when nobody's watching, right? That defines who you are. So I feel like you should learn from everyone. I feel like the big successful people and the big superstars, what you need to learn from them is all out in the public domain, but keep your eyes, ears, mind, heart open all the time because you never know when you're going to learn a good lesson.
Fabulous answer. And, I'm coming from Delhi myself. I could see the dig you took when you said that people in Bombay follow red lights at 4 a.m. In Delhi, people will not follow it at 4 p.m. also. So.
Delhi is all drivers are bulls. They see red, they mean go.
But do you miss Delhi now that you've been staying in Bombay?
Yeah, I and my parents are still there. My brother, my sister-in-law, my nephew. So I do end up making a lot of trips. I mean, definitely not as much in the pandemic, but I do end up making quite a few trips to Delhi. So they're quick. Just spend time with family, perhaps catch up with a friend or two, and then I come back. So you don't really end up missing it. It's not like, it's some back of beyond place where I'll go only like once in 2 years. So, I mean, I'm there like twice a month. So I don't really miss it. But the thing I always say about Mumbai is it's my Janam Bhumi, it's my Karam Bhumi. So I'm linked to this land. So I don't think I could, at least in India, I don't think I could live or work anywhere else.
Good to know. Do you also sort of sometimes take a trip down to South Campus, your college, Venkateshwar College, and explore that area?
I've not been there in a really long time. I think the last time I went was almost like 15 years ago when they had invited me to be a chief guest on something that was happening in college, and the principal's office, and feted over there by all the professors, and I pointed out to the principal. I said, "Sir, this is the same office where you threw me out after I had short attendance at the end of first year." And we had a good laugh. And I said, how life comes a full circle that, 8 or 10 years later, I'm invited here as a chief guest for, the big function in college. So I haven't been back there since then. I just don't have that much time when I go to Delhi. But I mean, even if I go there now, I just feel so out of place, right? I mean, it's how many generations have come and gone from the college. I'm sure none of the professors are there anymore. I'm sure the building looks different. So, it's like to leave well enough alone. So I think but if they were to invite me, I'd love to go back again, of course. But I don't think I want to rock up uninvited and just go, hum aa gaye hain.
But you should go to that area because, a lot of good eateries have opened up there. I can tell you that because, I've just recently graduated, not been 4 years. So I've, uh, moved around a lot in Delhi, especially.
There was a place there called Le Hangout, which we used to call Langot. Is it still there?
Now there's this whole market where, either there are MBA classes, CAT classes that are happening, or there are just small food joints which give you good cheap food, which is something that college students enjoy. So
perhaps
when you're from
Delhi, go back there someday, I guess.
And when you're in Delhi, you always want to eat whatever you can. The street food is something which probably.
Oh man, I mean the quality of food in Delhi, of course, is still. I remember the places I went to when I was growing up. There was a place called Chick Fish in Malviya Nagar. I used to love going there. We used to eat on the bonnet of the car. Then there was another place.
Only eat.
Yeah, you couldn't. I mean, I don't think you could drink in the open at that time, or could you? I don't remember. I've never really been a kind of a crazy drinker. So there's no. I mean, of course, I've done the whole. I won't pretend to be all saintly. We've all done the, in college, drive up to the border at that time and drink warm beers in a hot car on a 42-degree day. So I've done stuff like that in my time. But yeah, we used to love that. And then there was. Another place called Madras Cafe, which had the greatest dosas in Green Park, or go to Evergreen and eat chola bhatura. So I remember those things quite fondly. Seems like another lifetime though now. But yeah, I remember those. Delhi's got great food, man. Mumbai's got functional food.
That is something, which was also my complaint when I was working with. But then you get around. You just make use of. You look at the other things that are working around and you just sort of tell yourself, we'll manage. Anyway,
yeah.
Moving back to some serious conversation. Just this is something that I have to ask you. Three personalities from the sporting industry, not particularly sports persons, who you particularly rave about. You like to be like them, even if they were not, say a sports person. You just love their personality or the person that they are.
Michael Phelps. I had the great joy to spend one day with him. Michael Phelps for sure. Brilliant guy. Champion and a legend. I'm going to avoid cricketers completely. I'm going to avoid male cricketers completely, right? Because much spoken about at all times. So I would definitely like to be Michael Phelps. Smriti Mandana. So avoiding male cricketers, but got a female cricketer in. Because there's just this amazing joy that she has about a game, which I'm a big fan of. Who would the third be? Geez, that's a tough question, man. What is Sania Mirza? Another person. Geez, the resilience on that human is just amazing. What a fighter. These are my three.
We hope Sania and Phelps make it to Breakfast with Champions or 22 Yards. We'd love to, hear stories about them. Smriti Mandana, yeah. I've watched that episode, and I make a point that I watch all these stories, and I'm not just saying that because you're there, but there are a few episodes I love to go back and watch, whenever I have some time.
Which ones?
my favorite, I'll tell you, is the one with it's one of the shortest episodes, and but I just love it a lot. I love the episode with Bishan Singh Bedi like anything.
Oh,
It's
it's brilliant.
I think it's probably the best 15 minutes of the entire you know breakfast entire footage of Breakfast with Champions which is out there. I mean the
I,
stuff
I
that
hear
he
you.
spoke, and that line which always hits me in
Kirtan,
that. Sorry.
Kirtan wali line.
नहीं, एक वो है. Then there is this thing which he says about someone being a good sports person and a good administrator. There's this thing which he said that a good sports person is one who's a good student of the game, and a good administrator is one who's a good servant of the game. And
Yeah.
that line just hit me. It told me that in whatever thing you have to be, do well or be good at, you just have to be a very good student, and you have to sort of agree and keep your ego down that you'll never be knowing the stuff more than what you can ever be. So like if it's
Yeah.
cricket, you will probably always have something to learn. If it's
Yeah.
say your research about any particular subject, there will always be something to learn. So that
True.
was obviously there. And the line that you said about Kirtan ki ye, where he says ki Kirtan karna hai ya sunana hai. So
Banana hai. Love it.
just brilliant. The other is obviously Danny Morrison. I don't think a lot of people talk about it, but I just love the fact that he was left in Chandni Chowk, and his excitement, bewilderment, or shock was just amazing to see. And when he's getting that haircut done and that massage done is
Yeah.
absolutely. And he's someone who I enjoy a lot as a commentator also, because people actually think that he's someone who's very over the top, but when you see him commentate in test matches, he's not the same person who's shouting the double
True.
D's being led by the double G's are out there. Then he's a lot more sedate and he understands the pace. So really like him a lot.
He's one of my favorites. What I love about him is that, of course, with T20, you're absolutely spot on in your observation that he's two different people depending on ke mahol kya hai, and he adapts accordingly. He's also super curious as a person, and I love that. And he's open to new adventures, to new things. And for me, the one line which I said in the beginning of the show is, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? And that's what it is. Danny Morrison is the unstoppable force and Chandni Chowk is the immovable object. So it was great. And I think that, and I love the fact that he was up for it, right? He was like, yeah, let's do it. He loved it. So I quite enjoyed that episode as well.
Good to know you also have a few personal favorites, because it would be very difficult, because what viewers will not know is that there's obviously a lot of unseen footage. There's obviously a lot of planning that goes behind. So for a producer, it's always going to be difficult to pick out which one is the best one that he likes or he enjoys the most.
Yeah, man, I can't. Like, I'm asked this question a lot, but as a creator, as a producer, it's very difficult. It's like trying to pick your favorite amongst 55 kids, right? It's like you can't. It's impossible. So I just give up. There's bits that I like from all. So how do you pick those?
So one, I'm going to ask you something which still is not completely, I think this is an issue which has a lot more acceptance than what it was before, but I don't think it's gotten complete acceptance, amongst the sporting audiences. And it's the issue about the spouses and the partners on tour. I remember after the 2015 World Cup, there was a lot of blame, unfair blame rather, that was put on Anushka because she was there in the stadium. And we've always been the kind of society where we've sort of, I don't know for what reason, looked down upon players having spouses or partners along with on tour. Now, I want to know from you how much of it, is an added benefit, because you're someone who spent a lot of time with players. You're also friends with quite a few of them. So you will definitely know how much of a support system is important on tours, which are not only difficult, but also very lengthy. Sometimes they can be 3 months, 4 months. So, how much of, do you think is having a spouse or a partner important on a tour, or family even?
It's, I've never spoken to any of the guys about this because it just feels stupid, right? It feels so stupid on a human level. A guy should be able to decide whether he wants his family there or not on a long tour, right? Some people want their family there because gives them comfort. Some people may think that it distracts them. It's their choice. Who the hell are any of us to decide whether a person's family, wife, partner, support system, kids, parents should be there or not? I think that it is a disservice we do as cricket fans to even discuss this, right? It's a person's choice, yeah. अभी हम किसी को ऑफिस में जाके थोड़ी ना बोल रहे हैं कि आप अभी ऑफिस में ही रहो 2 महीने के लिए और घर मत जाना, अपनी फैमिली से मत मिलना. क्यों भाई? क्यों ना मिलो अपनी फैमिली से, right? So I feel like it is their choice, yeah. If some people find comfort in these tours are hard, the pressure is hard, everything is difficult, especially now with bio bubbles. Are you telling a person not to meet their kids for 4 months? Don't you think they'll be more distracted if their kids are not there? I mean, it's such common sense to understand that, and it's such stupidity to question it, that sometimes when people, want to talk, they really want to say and comment about that, I look at them and I go, you obviously have zero understanding about human beings. So I do, like, I completely ignore it. If somebody will tweet it, somebody will say it on social media, I'm like, you are obviously really stupid and you don't understand anything. You deserve me just scrolling forward on this. That's what I believe.
You anyway seem to have, your experience with social media trolls and the hate that comes, because you're also one of the few people who choose to lend a voice on the issues that are of relevance. You're not one of those who sort of thinks that I'm in my own privilege bubble. I really don't need to speak out. But
I'm not Atmanirbhar.
So yeah, I just want to touch upon that how do you deal with sometimes the hate that comes through on social media, and what do you feel about this entire thing about if people with an influence should speak out or not, or should they keep it to themselves, etc., etc.?
Yeah, people should do whatever they're comfortable with. I don't reserve any judgment. People have different motivations, different contexts. They come from different places. We don't know their pressures. For me, I can only judge myself. My thing is that if I have a certain voice and if I have a certain audience, it could be 10 people or 10 million people. If I believe strongly about something, I am going to raise my voice. I don't want to, go down as somebody who was complicit on things that I disagreed with. So if I disagree with something, the only thing I do it, I try to do it tactfully. I try to do it non-violently. I try to do it in a way that kind of will instigate conversation rather than kind of blame games. I try to do that. I don't know if I succeed or not. I hope I succeed more than I fail at that. But I choose to do that. On the flip side of it, yes, there's not just hate. There are death threats. There are other pressures that come. But that's the bed I've made, right? So that's the bed I've made, and that's the bed I choose to sleep in. So that's what I do. A lot of times I want to say something. I want people to think about it. I'm not going to engage with some dude with 25 followers and anonymous, and I don't know who the hell you are. पागल कुत्ता घर के बाद आके भौंकेगा तो आप दरवाजा थोड़ी ना खोल दोगे, right? I don't know who you are. Interact with a real human being, yeah? I don't know who the hell you are. With some 8 digits in your Twitter handle, you're not a real person. You're a bot. Screw you, man. I'm not going to let you make me lose sleep. So a lot of times I just say stuff and that's it. I just say it. Don't go to the replies. Finish. Just move on.
I remember your tweet from a month ago which said that if you're not going to reply to trolls because someone who's not going to acknowledge his or her own identity, there's no need for you to acknowledge their opinion.
Why should I acknowledge yours if you're not willing to acknowledge your own identity? Right? तुम अपना भाई नाम बताओ, अपना पता बताओ, अपना कुछ बताओ. तुम्हें तो पता है ना मैं कौन हूं. तुम आके पत्थर फेंक सकते हो. मुझे तो पता ही नहीं है कि तुम इंसान भी हो, तुम कंप्यूटर प्रोग्राम हो, तुम आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस हो. कौन हो तुम? नहीं पता. तो मैं क्यों फालतू में बाहर जाके तुमसे पंगा लूं? तुम करो, तुम भौंको बाहर, तुम बाहर ही भौंको.
A good opinion, and I think this is something which all of us should think about.
Yeah, man.
How much
don't lose sleep over things that you can't control. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Well, this brings me to something, about what you look to do, what you, Gaurav Kapur and Oaktree have for us in the future? Is there something that sports fans should be excited about or look forward to from Oaktree?
I'd hope so. We are. I'd hope they're excited. So we are currently dabbling in long form content. So there is a biopic that is in the works. There is a long form documentary that is in the works. There is a fiction show based on real sporting events in cricket history that is in the works. So there's a few long form bits that are in the works right now. Then there are a few podcasts, a few short format video shows. So there's things that we have that are coming up, and I'd hope that people are excited about them. So I think we have taken the bad thing that happened with the IPL kind of getting suspended is that obviously your projections and your workflow and everything gets derailed. The good thing that happened is that the team really kind of recovered really quickly from that and said, all right, let's use this time now to develop more stuff and to develop our pipeline. So I think they're doing that really well. And we are kind of doing, brainstorms every day, pitches every day. So there's a bunch of good ideas that have come up, which hopefully we look at executing over the next 6 to 12 months.
Because I am personally waiting for a new season of Breakfast with Champions. The last season was a brilliant one because there's Rahul Dravid for one, whose show I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Betley's show as well. So really looking forward to that. And there's this one comment I see in almost under every video of
Dhoni. You're going to say Dhoni.
Exactly.
But you've been in the business long enough to know that he doesn't do this, right? So I haven't even asked him. He's not a guy who's comfortable speaking about, his life. It's not like he's shuts off from his fans. He still, does a little bit of social media. He did a movie. So he's there, but that's what he's comfortable with. Don't want to intrude on his space, right? The day he knows people would love to watch him on that, the day he's comfortable, I'm sure he will himself say, all right, let's do it. But not going to pound him on that. So my answer to that is going to be never.
You got the next best thing anyway in Bharat Sundaresan on 22 yarns. You spoke a lot, about MS Dhoni, his habits. And
Bharat will be very happy that you've called him the next best thing after MS Dhoni. I can see him tossing his long hair right now in Australia.
No, but, you've got to give it to him. He somehow managed to reach to a man who really, like you said, stays away from all kinds of interactions. So for him to...
Yeah, but even there, it's his family and friends talking more about him than him, Mm-hmm. So MS is just that kind of person. He's kind of a little shy and reticent. I've spent a lot of time with him off camera. He's just like that. He's just super chill. He doesn't want to play that game. So you're just like, yeah, that's great, man. Don't play it. That's fine. Do something which is completely counterintuitive to what everybody else is doing and just forge that path. It's amazing. He has shown that for his popularity has endured over a decade and a half, but closing in on 2 decades now, right? And he has done it without effectively the media, right? It's nuts. He's a case study. Love it.
Well, yes, and hopefully, I hope that for the sake of his fans, for the sake of cricket fans, even for the sake of sports fans, we do sometime, somewhere, or somewhere, some years down the line, get to know more about the person, just from the process of how does he manage to remain so calm and what are the processes that he follows. But I also agree with you that there is a certain space that we should also let all players and celebrities, let themselves be, because sometimes I think that all of us can be a little,
we're human beings. We're curious. We're inquisitive. We're voyeuristic. That's all us human beings, right? And today the world is at a place where that's the truth. Is that everybody's got a high-tech recording device in their hands. There is no personal moment, right? There just isn't. You got to just get used to the fact that there is no personal moment. So I think the best thing to do is in public, be like you are in private, because it's just easier, right? The minute you try to put on a persona, that thing will break because somebody will get you at a time where you're vulnerable or you don't think someone's looking at you. So that's why when people ask me that, you're like same like you are on television. I'm like, yeah, because I'm too lazy to adopt another persona. I'm just happy like this. This is best, right? I can just talk to you right now and turn into a broadcast camera and then turn to a group of 5 friends, and I'm the same person, right? Just tapping a different part of my brain, but I am the same person. So I think it's just easier to do that, because the fact is that human behavior is not going to change. Our curiosity about other people's lives, to want to peek inside, to be slightly voyeuristic, is never going to go away. So you might as well just make it easy on yourself.
I think this is an excellent note and advice to end this show on, that one should be himself or herself and try not to put on a lot of figurative masks, literal masks we need to put on in today's times
Yeah.
whenever we step out on. But yeah, it's an excellent point that, if we are who we are, even in public as well as in private, it makes a lot of jobs and things easier for us. So, like I said, on this note, I'll end this show, and I'd like to thank you, Gaurav, from one GK to another. It was a pleasure hosting you, and it was great fun, like I had imagined. I was a little nervous, like I said in the beginning, but what you said initially actually eased me down, and I think that probably is the reason for the success of your shows as well. That you just somehow managed to ease things others who are there on your show, whether it be on Breakfast with Champions or 22 Yarns or on any of your broadcasts which are there. So that sure gives us a sneak peek of what works for you, and hopefully something like that works out for anyone who's watching this show, and maybe even listening to this show in the future, if I do plan to take it on an audio platform. Thank you, Gaurav, once
Yeah.
again. I hope you had fun.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me on. And I wish you all the best. And as I said, simple motto in life, darne ka nahi, karne ka. Just do it. Just do it. Just put it out there. Take the leap of faith. Remember, the only blue chip stock that you have a guarantee of is yourself. So invest in yourself. Always invest in yourself, invest in your future, and believe in yourself. So keep doing that. Keep believing, keep questioning, keep improving, stay curious, and I wish you all the best. So thank you so much for having me on your show, Gurgeet. Thank you.
Thank you.